The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. It came through every channel at once. Radio, television, the emergency networks that connected Earth to the rest of the galaxy. The Vethrani Dominion had spoken, and their words were simple: surrender or die. Ambassador Theron Malik stood in the United Earth Council chamber and watched the faces of his colleagues. Some looked afraid, others looked angry, a few simply looked tired, as if they had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. The Vethrani were not unknown to humanity. They were conquerors. Their empire stretched across 40 star systems, built on the bones of species that had refused to bow. They were tall creatures, nearly 3 meters in height, with 4 arms and skin like polished metal. Their ships were famous throughout the galaxy. Their warriors were feared, and now they had turned their eyes toward Earth. "They give us 14 days, said Director Chen, the head of Earth's Defense Council. She was a small woman with gray hair and cold eyes. 14 days to accept their terms, full absorption into the Dominion. Our governments dissolved, our military disbanded, our people to serve as labor for their empire. What are the alternatives?" asked a young representative from the European bloc. His voice shook slightly. "There are no alternatives," said the Vethrani ambassador. He stood at the far end of the chamber, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. His name was Keth Varan, and he had served the Dominion for 200 years. He had watched species rise and fall. He had delivered this same message to dozens of worlds. "Your fleet consists of 12 frigates, old models, purchased from the collective of merchants 20 years ago. Our armada numbers 400 warships. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification." Malik felt the weight of those words. He knew they were true. Humanity's fleet was small. Their technology was outdated. They had joined the galactic community 30 years ago as newcomers, and they had remained newcomers ever since. Other species looked at them with mild curiosity at best, and contempt at worst. Humans were young. Humans were primitive. Humans were not a threat. "We request time to deliberate," said Director Chen. Her voice was calm. Too calm, Malik thought. Keth Varan made a sound that might have been laughter. "Deliberate? What is there to discuss? Your mathematics cannot change. Your ships cannot multiply. You have nothing." 7 days, Chen continued, as if he had not spoken. "We request 7 days to prepare our response." The Vethrani ambassador studied her for a long moment. His eyes were black and endless, like holes in the fabric of space. "You wish to delay the inevitable, to savor your last moments of freedom." He made that laughing sound again. "Very well. The Dominion is not without mercy. You have 7 days. Use them to say goodbye to your world as you knew it." He turned and walked from the chamber. His footsteps echoed like thunder. When he was gone, the room erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for resistance, hopeless as it might be. A few simply sat in silence, their faces pale. But Malik noticed something strange. Director Chen had not moved. She sat at the head of the table, her hands folded before her, and she was smiling. It was a small smile, almost invisible, but it was there. "Clear the room," she said quietly. The shouting continued. No one had heard her. "Clear the room," she repeated, louder this time. The voices died. People stared at her. "Everyone except Council 7, she said. "Leave now. What comes next is classified at the highest level." There was confusion, protest. But within minutes, the chamber had emptied. Only 7 people remained. Malik was one of them. He had been recruited into Council 7 15 years ago. He had been told that he would learn secrets that would change everything he believed about humanity's place in the universe. He had been told to trust no one outside the Council. He had been told that someday, there would be a moment when all of it would matter. He had never truly believed that moment would come. Director Chen rose from her seat. She walked to the wall and pressed her palm against a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing a room that should not have existed. Inside that room were screens showing images that should not have been possible. Ships. Massive ships. Ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever publicly built. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen said, "it is time to wake up the Prometheus." Malik stared at the screens. He saw shipyards hidden inside asteroids. He saw factories buried beneath the ocean floor. He saw weapon systems that looked like something from a fever dream. "How long?" he whispered. How long have we been building this? Chen turned to face him. That small smile was still on her lips. Since the day we made first contact, she said. 30 years. We have spent 30 years preparing for exactly this moment. The galaxy thinks we are children. They think we are weak. They think we have spent 3 decades stumbling through the stars, barely able to fly the second-hand ships we bought from merchants. She paused. They are wrong. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. The Vethrani armada was already moving toward Earth, confident in their victory. They had no idea what was waiting for them. 30 years ago, a probe had fallen from the sky. It crashed in the Pacific Ocean, 300 kilometers from any coastline. Within hours, every major government on Earth knew about it. Within days, they had recovered it. Within weeks, they understood what it meant. Humanity was not alone, and the universe was not friendly. The probe contained information, star maps, language files, historical records. It was a gift from a dying species called the Morath, who had been conquered by the Vethrani centuries ago. Their final act of defiance was to warn other young worlds, to give them a chance. The message was simple: hide your strength, or lose it. General William Hayes had been a young man then. He sat in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains and read the Morath files with growing horror. The galaxy was old, ancient. Hundreds of species had risen to the stars, and hundreds had fallen. Conquest was normal. Slavery was common. The strong survived, and the weak became servants or corpses. Earth had perhaps 50 years before someone noticed them, perhaps 100, if they were lucky. When that day came, they needed to be ready. Hayes had proposed the plan that would become known as the Veil. We cannot win a fair fight, he told the secret council that had formed around the probe's discovery. We are centuries behind in technology. If we try to build openly, the galaxy will see us. They will crush us before we become a threat. Our only advantage is that they do not yet know we exist. He spread his hands. So we hide, we develop in secret. And when they finally come for us, we show them what humanity can really do. The plan was insane. It required every major nation to work together in absolute secrecy. It required building an entire shadow civilization that the galaxy could never detect. It required lying to the entire universe for decades. They did it anyway. The first challenge was hiding their progress. When alien merchants made contact with Earth 5 years later, humanity played the fool. They acted confused by basic technology. They struggled with simple concepts. They bought old, outdated ships that the merchants were happy to sell at high prices. Behind the scenes, humanity's scientists were already decades ahead of what they pretended to know. They built their real shipyards inside asteroids, where no sensors could detect them. They constructed factories in underwater trenches, powered by geothermal energy. They developed technology in bunkers that officially did not exist, staffed by people whose lives had been erased from all records. The second challenge was gathering intelligence. Earth's diplomats were chosen not for their political skills, but for their ability to observe, remember, and report. Every embassy became a listening post. Every trade negotiation was an opportunity to learn. Within 10 years, humanity knew more about the galaxy than species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. They studied the Vethrani's battle tactics. They analyzed their shield frequencies. They mapped their command structures. They learned that Vethrani ships were powerful but predictable, designed to overwhelm inferior enemies rather than fight equals. They studied the collective of merchants and discovered their trade encryption codes. They studied the Sethri and learned their cultural weaknesses. They studied the Galactic Council and understood its corruption, its inefficiency, its willingness to sacrifice young species to keep the peace. Every piece of information went into the plan. The third challenge was building the fleet. This was the hardest part. Ships the size they needed could not be built in secret, not unless they found places no one would ever look. Ceres, the largest object in the asteroid belt. They hollowed it out over 15 years, constructing a shipyard at its core. The debris from the excavation was scattered across the belt, disguised as natural asteroids, Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon. Beneath the ice, they built construction facilities that would never see sunlight. Power came from the moon's internal heat, the dark side of Luna, Earth's own moon. They carved hangars into the rock, hidden from every angle that alien ships might observe. In these places, humanity built its true fleet. The Prometheus was the first supercarrier, 5 kilometers long, carrying 200 strike craft, armed with weapons designed specifically to counter every threat humanity had identified. She was followed by 14 sisters. Each one was a fortress. Each one carried enough firepower to break an enemy fleet, and, for 30 years, they waited. General Hayes died at the age of 91. His last words were a question. Is the veil still holding? It was. Director Chen had been his student, chosen to carry the secret forward. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for the day when humanity would reveal itself. She had watched species fall to the Vithrani. She had attended funerals for worlds that no longer existed. Now, as she stood before the hidden screens showing humanity's true fleet, she felt the weight of 3 decades of deception lifting from her shoulders. The lie was almost over. Soon, the galaxy would learn what humanity had been doing all this time, and they would never look at Earth the same way again. 7 days passed like a held breath. Across the galaxy, observers tuned in to watch the fall of Earth. It was entertainment for some species, a warning for others. The Vithrani had not lost a war in 600 years, and no one expected that record to change today. The Vithrani armada entered the Sol system like a storm of metal and fire. 400 warships, battle cruisers and destroyers and carriers filled with fighter craft. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of death spreading across the darkness of space. Admiral Keth Voran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He watched the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. Such a pretty world, he thought. It would make a fine addition to the Empire. The humans would learn to serve, as so many species had learned before them. Admiral, said his sensor officer, we detect the human fleet, 12 vessels, holding position near the 4th planet. Keth Voran made his laughing sound. 12 vessels. They didn't even try to run. Shall we offer them one last chance to surrender? No. They had their chance. Now they will serve as an example. The Armada moved deeper into the system. They passed the outer planets. They passed the asteroid belt. They approached Mars, where the tiny human fleet waited like lambs before wolves. Then the broadcasts began. Every screen on every Vithrani ship flickered. Every communication channel filled with static. And then, a human face appeared. A woman with gray hair and cold eyes. This is Director Chen of United Earth Command, she said. We thank you for your patience over the past week. We needed time to wake up our fleet. Keth Voran felt something cold move through his chest. What is she talking about? Their fleet is right in front of us. Admiral, whispered his sensor officer. Her voice was shaking. Admiral, you need to see this. The screens changed. They showed the dark side of Earth's moon. Massive doors were opening in the lunar surface. Doors that should not exist. Ships were emerging. Big ships, ships that dwarfed anything the Vithrani had brought. That's not possible, Keth Voran said. Those readings must be wrong. But the readings were not wrong. From behind the moon, 3 supercarriers emerged. Each one was 5 kilometers long. Each one carried hundreds of smaller vessels in their hangars. Their hulls were black as the void, and their weapon systems glowed with barely contained energy. From the asteroid belt, more ships appeared. Hidden doors opened in rocks that had seemed dead and empty for billions of years. Shipyards came to life. Factories powered up. An entire civilization revealed itself in moments. From beneath the ice of Europa, still more ships rose. They had been sleeping in the darkness of Jupiter's shadow, waiting for this exact moment. And from Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt, the greatest ship of all emerged, the HSS Prometheus. She was a monster. A cathedral of war built in secret over 3 decades. Her weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Her armor was layered with materials that Vithrani scientists would not understand for centuries. Her engines bent the laws of physics in ways that should have been impossible. Keth Voran counted the ships appearing on his screens. 15 supercarriers, over 3,000 smaller vessels, a fleet that matched his own in numbers and exceeded it in every other way. How? He whispered. How did they build this? We watched them. We had spies in their shipyards. We knew every vessel they constructed. Director Chen's voice came through the communications channel again. You watched what we wanted you to watch. You saw what we wanted you to see. For 30 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We learned everything about you. Your tactics, your weapons, Your weaknesses. We built a fleet designed specifically to defeat you. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Wei Chen, Director Chen's younger sister, watched the Vethrani armada with calm eyes. She had trained for this battle her entire life. Every simulation, every war game, every sleepless night had led to this moment. "Admiral," said her tactical officer, "the Vethrani fleet is holding position. They seem confused." "They should be," Wei said. "Open a channel to their command ship." The channel crackled to life. "Admiral Keth Voran," Wei said. "I am Admiral Wei Chen of the Human Defense Force. You came here expecting to conquer a primitive species. You found something else. I am giving you one chance to withdraw from our system. Take your ships and leave. Tell your masters what you found here. If you stay, we will destroy you." There was silence on the channel. Long, terrible silence. Then Keth Voran's voice came through, filled with rage. "You think your tricks frighten us? The Dominion has crushed 100 species. We will crush you too." "We were hoping you would say that," Wei replied. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. "All ships, begin attack pattern Prometheus. Show them what 30 years of preparation looks like." The human fleet moved forward, and the silence of space was shattered by the light of 10,000 weapons firing at once. The battle lasted 4 hours. In galactic terms, this was nothing. Wars between major powers could last for decades. But this was not a war. This was an execution. The Vethrani fought with everything they had. They were warriors, bred for conquest over 600 years. Their ships were powerful. Their crews were experienced. They had crushed species that seemed far more dangerous than humanity. None of it mattered. Human weapons cut through Vethrani's shields like they were made of paper. The frequencies were wrong. The shields were designed to block energy weapons that every known species used. But humanity had spent 30 years studying those shields, and they had built weapons that exploited every weakness. Vethrani ships tried to evade. They used patterns that had worked against a dozen enemies. But human targeting systems predicted every move before it happened. The Vethrani had fought the same way for centuries. Humanity had recorded every battle, analyzed every tactic, and programmed counters into their computers. When the Vethrani tried to coordinate their attacks, they found their communications jammed. Human electronic warfare systems had been designed specifically to disrupt Vethrani command frequencies. Admirals could not speak to their captains. Captains could not speak to their crews. The armada that had moved in perfect formation became a scattered mess of confused ships. Admiral Wei Chen watched the battle from the bridge of the Prometheus with a strange sadness. She had spent her entire life preparing to destroy these ships. Now that the moment had come, she felt no joy in it, only the cold satisfaction of survival. "Enemy flagship is attempting to flee," her tactical officer reported. "The Eternal Dominion is breaking formation. Let them try," Wei said. "Target their engines. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." The Prometheus spoke with fire. 3 precise shots struck the Eternal Dominion's engine section. The massive Vethrani battleship went dark, drifting through space like a dead thing. One by one, the Vethrani ships fell. Some were destroyed. Some were disabled. Some, seeing that the battle was lost, surrendered. Human ships moved among the wreckage, collecting survivors from broken vessels. When it was over, the Vethrani armada that had numbered 400 ships was reduced to debris and silent hulks. Human losses were minimal. 23 ships damaged, 4 destroyed, no supercarriers lost. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched in stunned silence. The collective of merchants, the wealthiest trading power in known space, held emergency meetings. Their leaders realized that human diplomats had been mapping their trade networks for decades. Every negotiation, every deal, every exchange had been an intelligence operation. The merchants had thought they were taking advantage of naive newcomers. Now they understood that they had been studied like insects under glass. The Sethri, a species of reptilian warriors who respected only strength, found themselves re-evaluating everything they knew about humanity. They had dismissed humans as soft creatures, too emotional to be dangerous. They had been wrong. The cold efficiency of the human attack was something the Sethri recognized. It was the efficiency of predators who did not fight for honor or glory, but simply to win. The Galactic Council, the ancient governing body that had maintained peace through careful balance of power, fell into chaos. For centuries, The Council had managed conflicts by playing species against each other. They had allowed the Vethrani to conquer because conquered species did not threaten the Council's authority. But humanity had hidden from them. Humanity had grown strong in secret, and now humanity owed the Council nothing. In the chamber of the Council, representatives whispered to each other in fearful voices. How did they hide this? What else don't we know? Their ambassadors seemed so foolish, so naive. It was an act. All of it was an act. If they deceived us about this, what else have they deceived us about? The oldest member of the Council, a being called the Eternal Observer, had lived for 3,000 years. He had watched species rise and fall. He had seen empires born and die. He had thought he understood the patterns of the galaxy. Now he sat in silence, staring at recordings of the battle. They learned from all of us, he finally said. Every species we encountered, every war we fought, every mistake we made. They watched, and they learned, and they built something new. He turned to face his fellow council members. We taught them to be predators, he said. And now they have become something we cannot control. Across 1,000 worlds, the same realization spread. Humanity had played the long game. They had worn a mask of weakness for 30 years, letting the galaxy underestimate them while they prepared in secret, and now the mask was off. In the wreckage of the Vethrani fleet, Admiral Keth Voran sat in his darkened bridge and waited for the humans to come for him. He had conquered 17 species in his long career. He had never been defeated. Now he was defeated, and he could not understand how. The humans had fought without rage, without cruelty, without the bloodlust that drove the Vethrani. They had fought like machines, like forces of nature, like something inevitable. That was what frightened him most. When human soldiers finally boarded his ship, they did not torture him. They did not mock him. They treated him with cold respect, like dangerous cargo being carefully handled. Your species will learn, he told the human officer who took him prisoner. You have won one battle. The Dominion will send more ships. They will learn from this defeat. The officer looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, no triumph, no emotion at all. We are counting on it, she said. 3 weeks after the battle, humanity made an announcement that confused the entire galaxy. They released the prisoners. Every surviving Vethrani soldier was given medical treatment, food, and transport home. Admiral Keth Voran himself was placed on a ship and sent back to the Dominion with a message for his masters. The message was simple. We do not want war. We never did. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. The galaxy did not know how to respond to this. Conquerors did not show mercy. Species that won wars took territory, demanded tribute, enslaved their enemies. That was how things worked. That was how things had always worked. But humanity was not interested in conquest. Director Chen addressed the Galactic Council via holographic transmission. She stood before them in the same plain uniform she always wore, her face calm and unreadable. For 30 years, she said, we watched your galaxy. We saw how you treated young species. We saw the wars, the conquests, the extinctions. We understood that the only way to survive was to become strong enough that no one would dare attack us. She paused, letting her words sink in. We have achieved that goal. The Vethrani sent 400 ships to enslave us, and we destroyed them in 4 hours. We have 15 supercarriers and thousands of support vessels. We have weapons that your scientists will not understand for centuries. We have intelligence networks that span the entire galaxy. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But we did not build these things to become conquerors ourselves, Chen continued. We built them so that we would never need to be conquered. We want peace. We want trade. We want to be part of a galaxy that does not devour its own children. The Eternal Observer spoke, his ancient voice cracking with age. And what guarantees do we have that you speak the truth? You deceived us for 30 years. Why should we trust you now? Chen smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. You have no guarantees, she said. Just as we had no guarantees when we were young and weak and surrounded by species that would have enslaved us without a second thought. The difference is that now, we are strong enough to choose how we want to live. We choose peace. But we will defend that peace with everything we have. In the weeks that followed, ambassadors from dozens of species arrived at Earth. They came not to threaten, but to understand. They came to negotiate trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. They came to study the strange species that had hidden in plain sight for 3 decades and emerged as a power that could challenge anyone. The Sethri were among the first. Their warriors respected strength above all else, and humanity had proven its strength beyond question. They proposed an alliance. Humanity accepted, but on equal terms. The Sethri had never had an equal before. They found that they liked it. The collective of merchants came next. They had spent years cheating humanity in trade deals, selling them outdated technology at high prices. Now they discovered that humanity had been using those deals to study their encryption systems and map their trade routes. They were embarrassed, but they were also impressed. They offered fair terms this time, real partnerships, honest exchanges. Even some Vethrani came, quietly and unofficially. Lower-ranking officers who had survived the battle and wanted to understand the species that had defeated them. They found humans who were willing to talk, willing to explain, willing to treat them as something other than enemies. Not everyone accepted the new order. The Vethrani Dominion made angry threats, promising revenge. Other species watched from the shadows, calculating whether humanity could be brought down. The galaxy was old and full of danger, but something had changed. Humanity had proven that it was possible to survive without becoming a monster. They had built the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, and they had chosen not to use it for conquest. They had defeated their enemies and shown them mercy. It was a new way of thinking, a new way of existing among the stars. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Wei Chen stood before the viewports and watched Earth turn slowly in the distance. The blue planet looked so small, so fragile. It was hard to believe that such a place had produced a species that could challenge the ancient powers of the galaxy. Her sister, Director Chen, joined her at the viewport. "Do you think it will last?" Wei asked. "This peace we've built?" "No," the director said honestly. "There will always be those who see strength and want to test it. There will always be wars to fight. But we have given ourselves a chance. That is more than most species ever get." Wei nodded. She thought of the 30 years of secrets, the generations of sacrifice, the millions of people who had worked in hidden shipyards and underwater factories, never knowing if their efforts would matter. It had mattered. It had mattered more than anything in human history. "The galaxy is watching us," the director said. "They want to know what kind of species we really are. They want to know if power will corrupt us the way it corrupted so many others. And what will we show them?" The director smiled. This time, it was a warm smile. "We will show them that humans remember what it felt like to be weak, and that we will never treat others the way we were almost treated. We will show them that strength and mercy can exist together." Outside the viewport, the stars burned with ancient fire. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was recalculating, reassessing, wondering what would come next. Humanity had unveiled its hidden strength. Now it was time to show the universe what it would do with it.